China Coast Guard Vessel 5901. This is Philippine Coast Guard Vessel BR.
China's ambitions for the South China Sea Islands have escalated again. On January 5th at 2 p.m., a massive Chinese Coast Guard ship numbered 5901, which is equipped with a helicopter, brazenly intimidated the Philippines by operating just 77 nautical miles from its coastline. Footage shows uniformed Chinese crew members waving axes, damaging a Filipino fishing boat, and seizing bags of supplies. At the same time, a Chinese government-backed hacker group, APT-41, was revealed to have been attacking Philippine government institutions, including the presidential office. This has persisted over a year and a half, starting in 2023. They stole a trove of confidential documents, including military files related to the South China Sea. APT-41 is known for its highly skilled and adaptable cyber espionage capabilities. If even the Philippine presidential office can be hacked, it shows how pervasive China's cyber operations are. To dominate the South China Sea, they seem willing to use every tool at their disposal. On December 29th last year, China's military showcased its strength over the Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. H-6J bombers took off armed, escorted by Su-30 fighter jets, along with KJ-500 early warning aircraft and Y-8 electronic warfare planes. On the sea, Type 052D and Type 055 destroyers joined the display. A Chinese military program even boasted that the H-6 could strike targets within 500 kilometers, as if an American aircraft carrier was just around the corner. However, the U.S. didn't even bother sending a carrier into the South China Sea. Instead, it deployed the RC-135 reconnaissance plane and an MQ-9A drone near Scarborough Shoal to monitor Chinese activities. This light presence was enough to keep an eye on the situation without involving a full carrier strike group. So why is China making such high-profile moves? It's because of recent provocations. The Scarborough Shoal, located within the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, has long been occupied by China. On November 10th, China unilaterally declared territorial waters and airspace over the area, attempting to establish facts on the ground. The U.S. and the Philippines responded with daily reconnaissance flights, sending a clear message: the Scarborough Shoal belongs to the Philippines. On December 4th, the Philippines sent 4 Coast Guard vessels, 6 government ships, and a fleet of fishing boats to the shoal, facing obstruction from China's Coast Guard ship 3302. Later, on December 19th, a Philippine C-208 aircraft patrolled the skies over the area, reinforcing its claim. China couldn't retaliate militarily without sparking international backlash. Even when U.S. reconnaissance planes hovered overhead, China didn't dare act. After the U.S. reconnaissance planes left, China deployed its elite forces, claiming they could challenge American aircraft carriers. But the U.S. kept its carriers 1,600 kilometers away, in Malaysia's Port Klang, not even giving China the satisfaction of a closer engagement. On January 9th, the Royal Canadian Navy's frigate HMCS Ottawa and the U.S. Navy's USS Higgins conducted a joint patrol near the Scarborough Shoal. China's naval ships, the Changsha and the Yuncheng, could only follow from a distance, avoiding any provocative actions. The truth is, if an American carrier group were to enter the South China Sea, it would bring interceptors, early warning aircraft, and Aegis-equipped destroyers. Against this, China's H-6J bombers would struggle to even get close. Even if they managed to reach their target, U.S. forces would have ample means to counter and intercept, making the outcome clear. Why is China so determined to control the Scarborough Shoal? Its strategic location makes it a natural military fortress. Surrounded by open waters with no nearby islands, its deep lagoon can accommodate large ships and is protected against torpedo attacks. If China builds a large airstrip there, deploys bombers, and installs radar, missile defense, and anti-air systems, it would pose a significant threat to both the Philippines and U.S. military bases in the region. Furthermore, the shoal's location could disrupt U.S. military movements from the Malacca and Makassar Straits to the Philippines, explaining why the U.S. and the Philippines are so protective of it. China's illegal occupation of Scarborough Shoal dates back to 2012. In April of that year, when Philippine naval ships patrolled the area and tried to inspect Chinese fishing boats, they were blocked by Chinese maritime surveillance ships. This led to a standoff, and with its larger fleet and Coast Guard backing, China forced the Philippines to withdraw, ultimately taking control of the shoal. This blatant seizure set the stage for the ongoing tensions. The Philippines couldn't accept China's actions and took the matter to the International Court. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that the Scarborough Shoal and its surrounding waters were not part of China's exclusive economic zone. However, China refused to acknowledge the decision, continuing to send Coast Guard vessels and fishing boats to the area. Recently, it unilaterally declared its sovereignty over the shoal. On January 1st, China raised its flag at the Scarborough Shoal, signaling its next possible step: land reclamation to turn the shoal into another artificial island like Fiery Cross Reef. The Philippines has drawn a firm red line. Its defense minister warned that large-scale reclamation at Scarborough Shoal would be an intolerable provocation, promising urgent countermeasures. The U.S. has also expressed support for Manila, pledging to defend its South China Sea rights. All eyes are now on China's next move, as the Philippines and the international community closely monitor whether Beijing will escalate further. Over the past 8 months, the Philippines has actively resisted Chinese control. On June 14th last year, a Filipino civic group organized a flotilla of 5 commercial fishing vessels and over 100 smaller boats, bringing supplies to Filipino fishermen near the Scarborough Shoal. By June 15th, they had reached within 25 to 30 nautical miles of the shoal. China scrambled its Coast Guard vessel 3502 and even deployed the missile-equipped destroyer Yinchuan. Despite the tension, the Filipino vessels succeeded in delivering 1,000 liters of diesel and 200 food packages, a move China viewed not as aid, but as an assertion of sovereignty. The flotilla leader, Robert Francis Garcia, said he wasn't surprised by China's reaction, as he had encountered similar incidents during a December 2023 Christmas resupply mission from Palawan's El Nido to Second Thomas Shoal. On August 25th, tensions escalated when a Chinese Coast Guard vessel deliberately rammed a Filipino supply ship in the South China Sea. This came just a week after another collision between their law enforcement vessels, prompting sharp criticism from the Philippine Defense Ministry. Defense Minister Gilberto Teodoro directly accused China of being the biggest disruptor of peace in the ASEAN region. In response, on August 27th, the Filipinos and the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command expanded their mutual defense treaty to include the escort of Philippine supply missions in the South China Sea. Admiral Samuel Paparo of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command emphasized that under the treaty, escorting Philippine vessels is entirely justified. To counter China's actions in the South China Sea, the U.S. has rallied its allies, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, and India, forming a defense network to curb China's growing influence in the region. The Philippines has also strengthened its defense capabilities, preparing for potential conflict. On January 4th, former Philippine defense advisor Aaron Jed Rabena declared that the country was ready to defend its sovereignty at any cost, referring to the Philippines as a frontline nation. Manila has received the U.S. Typhoon medium-range missile system and allocated $35 billion to upgrade its equipment, intelligence gathering, and missile defense capabilities. The Typhoon system, capable of launching Tomahawk and Standard 6 missiles with ranges of 500 to 2,000 kilometers, reportedly has the capacity to strike mainland China. Meanwhile, the U.S. has been fully committed to countering China. In late October, the U.S. conducted its largest and most complex joint military exercise, the Keen Sword 25, with Japan in the Western Pacific, and participation from the UK. On November 19th, during his visit to Palawan, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin publicly acknowledged the existence of the Second Thomas Shoal Task Force. He met with its members and reaffirmed U.S. support for the Philippines. Malaysia, previously more neutral, has been enhancing its military ties with the United States. On November 23rd last year, the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Carl Vinson visited Port Klang for resupply. On December 29th, the Carl Vinson made an unprecedented move, arriving with 2 squadrons of F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters. France has also been increasing its presence in the region. In January, the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle visited India and conducted joint exercises with the Indian Air Force. It will soon deploy to the Indo-Pacific, where it will participate in joint drills with the navies of the US, UK, Australia, and others. Other countries are also stepping up. Earlier this year, Japan is set to finalize an agreement to export Type 12 shore-based anti-ship missiles to the Philippines. Japan is also providing military training to the Philippine forces, which is expected to be implemented soon. India has been upgrading its military capabilities to counter Chinese actions in the Indian Ocean. It has invested heavily in upgrading its Tiger Shark-class submarines, equipping them with an air-independent propulsion system and French-made heavy torpedoes. These submarines, developed in collaboration with France and Spain, are designed for extended stealth missions underwater. The French-made F-21 torpedoes they carry are said to be highly lethal. Vietnam has been purchasing India's BrahMos supersonic anti-ship missiles. These missiles can carry a 200-gram armor-piercing warhead, reach speeds of Mach 2.8, and have a maximum range of 290 kilometers. They're capable of hitting both maritime and land targets. This purchase, valued at $700 million, is aimed at bolstering Vietnam's ability to target Chinese forces. The deal has already been approved by Vietnam's Defense Ministry and is awaiting finalization. Vietnam has also strengthened ties with the Philippines. In August last year, the two countries conducted a joint Coast Guard exercise. While their territorial claims in the South China Sea overlap, they are collaborating to counter China. Amid this growing cooperation, Chinese Premier Li Qiang visited Vietnam on October 12 last year, signing 10 agreements in just 3 days, and emphasizing that the China-Vietnam relationship is a top priority. The intent to win Vietnam over was unmistakable. However, Vietnam, like the Philippines, has been bullied by China in the South China Sea. It's unlikely Vietnam will align entirely with Beijing. Its recent moves are more about balancing between US and Chinese influence. As Donald Trump prepares to take office, his incoming administration has made its anti-China stance clear. The Defense Secretary nominee, Pete Hegseth, adopted a tone during his Senate confirmation hearing, declaring China to be the greatest threat to U.S. national security. He emphasized the need to enhance military deployment and restore combat readiness to counter China's aggressive actions. His remarks echo the sentiments of President Reagan during the late Cold War, signaling a sharp pivot to a more assertive strategy to end the China threat. If confirmed, Washington's military stance toward Beijing is likely to become even tougher. Back during Trump's previous term, on January 29, 2020, Japanese media revealed a secret. Trump had a covert plan to bomb Scarborough Shoal. According to Washington Post reporter Philip Rucker, the report was entirely credible. Aides in the Oval Office and the Pentagon had already drafted detailed operational plans, waiting only for Trump's go-ahead. On July 2, 2020, U.S. reconnaissance planes were already patrolling the Bashi Channel, and by the end of that month, they had conducted 28 reconnaissance missions over Scarborough Shoal. Now, U.S. planes fly over the area almost daily. Such frequent activity suggests that something more significant was being prepared. It's worth noting that Scarborough Shoal served as a U.S. military bombing range for 20 years, so the U.S. knows the area inside out. On January 16th, during a Senate hearing, Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio delivered one of the most blunt and direct critiques of the Chinese Communist Party. He laid bare the CCP's strategy of using globalization to enrich itself while undermining world order. Rubio declared that China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran have formed an angry anti-American axis of evil. If the U.S. continues to turn a blind eye to China, the CCP will threaten 21st century American prosperity. Rubio's confirmation is almost guaranteed, and his stance signals that tensions between Washington and Beijing will continue to escalate. The new Secretary of State, a devout Christian, strongly opposes the CCP's religious persecution. The U.S. containment strategy will only intensify once the new administration takes office. Meanwhile, internal discord within the CCP is growing louder. Reformists and so-called pragmatists within the party are increasingly dissatisfied with policies. There are whispers of removing Xi. On the night of January 15th, handwritten slogans reportedly appeared on pieces of A4 paper along Beijing's Metro Line 1. They were written with messages like, "If he dies, the people will have food," and "If he dies, the people will have jobs." Although no names were mentioned, everyone knew who they referred to. More alarmingly, the public security authorities didn't issue strict orders to investigate, suggesting confusion within the ranks of law enforcement. It raises questions about how much longer the CCP can hold things together. Ordinary Chinese citizens are also becoming harder to control. Rumor has it that Xi Jinping recently received a report summarizing popular internet memes and sayings critical of his leadership. It's a sign that public discontent is brewing, and even the highest levels of government are becoming aware of the growing cracks in their authorities. Such slogans include, "The CCP claims to have the most advanced theories, yet it constantly lags behind the world. It calls itself the most selfless party, yet corruption runs rampant. It boasts the most brilliant culture globally, yet its own people lack cultural depth. It declares its achievements the greatest, yet it is repeatedly choked by international restrictions. China has the most voices, but only one can be heard. China has the most minds, but only one thought prevails," Xi Jinping thought. On the global stage, it flaunts diplomacy, but it lacks true friends. It chants anti-corruption slogans daily, but never dares to disclose its officials' assets. These straightforward criticisms are the kind of comments often found in online videos or group chats. For a long time, Xi Jinping was reportedly unaware of this level of public sentiment. Such a realization would undoubtedly make him uneasy about his governance. Whether the CCP can survive the storms of this year depend on the choices it makes. If it stubbornly escalates tensions with the US and triggers a military conflict, it could lead to a seismic global event. Should the party's grassroots turn against it during such a crisis, it might face a swift and irreversible collapse.